So, my guest on the Neil Wilkins podcast today is Eli Farhood, who is from CatchID.com. Now, we're going to be talking about a topic that is absolutely critical if you are looking to embrace any of the emerging technologies, AI, and anything else that puts you in the digital spotlight. So, if you have a website, if you're trading online, if you have an email address, even, then cybersecurity combined with AI is a big strategic consideration for you. This is not something to take lightly, and Eli's going to guide us through the things that we can do and the things to watch out for. So welcome to the podcast, Eli.
Hi, Neil. Thank you for having me. It's my pleasure to be part of your, podcast.
It's so great to see you. And I think, for all of us here, there's a really, really important message I think that we both need to get through to people is that this can happen to any of us. The downside of all of these amazing emerging technologies and opportunities is the fact that it makes us potentially vulnerable online. Tell us a little bit about your experience, because even you, as a cybersecurity expert, are not completely immune to this, are you?
No, I don't think anyone is immune, Neil. And the fact is that, even professionals sometimes fall for it in terms of identity fraud. Your credit card can be hijacked. So how are you guilty here, right? If someone steals your information from a database or steal that credit card information from a multinational company, or if you happen to lose your credit card, right? You just dropped it somewhere. How can you protect yourself? Your cybersecurity information, your sensitive information, we call it PII, right? Personal identifying information, can be found also on the dark web today due to those data breaches that are more often than ever. I mean, every other week you hear about a cyber attack, a major cyber attack, where Microsoft or the likes of those trillion-dollar companies are, are unable to protect us or protect their infrastructure. So what would the average Joe, say at those incidents? Like, if Microsoft or the likes of Microsoft aren't safe, then no one is safe. That's how we see it, and history proves it. We were never able to protect our information from hackers. It's just the data breaches and what we call technically honeypot thefts are very, very common attacks, and they've always been working very well for the hackers.
There are some amazing minds, aren't there? I always think that somebody who is able to hack, somebody who is, sort of technically so advanced in terms of their programming, their coding, their ability to problem solve. I mean, these are brilliant minds, and yet being put to such bad, such dark kind of purposes. Why is it, do you think, that there is this insatiable appetite by potentially a hacker to kind of enter into this area? Because I guess as the challenges of cybersecurity kind of increase, it becomes more of a game. Is that part of this? It's almost like a sport for them, I guess.
I think personally that the fact that we make it very easy to do business, those hackers are at the end of the day, businessmen, right? They're trying to find an opportunity and use the skills they have to make money. They're like entrepreneurs in that sense, but bad entrepreneurs. Let's put it this way: bad for society, bad for trade, bad for anything else. But for them, it's a business, and they probably noticed that it's easy to do business. It's easy to hijack someone's account. It's not very difficult. Once I make it and breach that database and conduct that data breach and get access to hundreds of millions of accounts and information, sensitive data, I can use this, to funnel money, to money laundering transactions. I can conduct illicit activities, right? And use those names as a great vehicle to conduct my illicit and illegal activities. And if I fall for it, I'm not getting harmed. That guy that I use his name, he's the one that's going to be caught, and he's going to be the identity fraud victim, not me. right, as a hacker. And so the fact that we were able to make business really easy, especially here in the States, like few clicks, some information, and I can create a credit account in 5 minutes. It's as simple as that, just because I have the information, right? So yeah, I think these are entrepreneurs. Yeah, they're using it to the bad though, and they're just taking advantage. Like, they see that there's an opportunity for them to make money, and I think the system itself, like, is to blame in a way. Like the way we make it easy to do business, the way that we don't protect individuals enough. We think that at the end of the day, and maybe perhaps also the system, like back in the days, maybe 10, 20, 30 years ago, attacks weren't that sophisticated. And the mentality was that, let's make it easy to do business. We want to grow. And if there's any risks, it's okay. We have some provisions in place. We can write it off at the end of the year. Like, we can absorb that little loss if it happens. But, as technology, which is, in my view, the gate to innovation, has been, amazing every one of us, right? Everything runs digitally today on our devices. We use apps for everything, right? We order a taxi, which used to be the case very differently now. In a few minutes, it comes to your door and they pick you up. So all these technologies and the digital world expansion has changed the I would say the ecosystem, and those technologies, they're not just used by us now, they're used by those hackers, those malign actors. And so when we made it easy to do business, now I don't think it's a good idea to keep the same stance and just allow people to create an account with a few clicks. It has to be more enforced. I used to work in Europe, by the way, and I know how businesses run there. For example, in Switzerland, if you want to create a bank account, you got to show up in person or sometimes send hard copies with DHL. Like, it's a lengthy process. It's not that easy. So yeah, now the system, I think, is getting that wake up call. Hey, we have AI. We have, like, technologies that are accessible by hackers and hacking groups. And now they're groups. They're very organized. They're well organized organizations that can, and sometimes they're sovereign backed. And so think about, how do you protect your identity today, and how do you stay safe in this world where we as consumers think that personal information is not a big deal. Like, everyone has it, so it's okay. They can steal it. I'm not perhaps a billionaire, so people won't worry about me. I don't have anything in my bank account. I've heard that a lot. Like, I have nothing in my bank account. It's okay. They can take my information. But no, that's not how it works. That's not how it works. Hackers, at the end of the day, they don't just want to steal money from your account. Sometimes they just want to use your name as they want to use your name to funnel money, right? To conduct illicit activities, and this is where it becomes very dangerous for you as a person.
So it isn't then just about the big guys, the billionaires, even the millionaires, or the large organizations. This comes right down to, as you say, anybody of any size, any scale, in any sector, any walk of life. If they can get your personal details, they can leverage those details, even if cash directly is not involved. I think that's a real wake-up call, I think, for a lot of us, because I guess a lot of us assume, well, they're only really targeting the big players here. They would never be interested in me. But are you saying that really is not the reality, because an identity is actually even more valuable than the money within the account?
Absolutely. Absolutely. They can actually make more money from the average person by funneling and using that account for their illegal activities than to just steal $100 or whatever amount you may have in that account. Because they can also resell that information. A lot of these data breaches are actually why they're available on the dark web, and they're selling for $50 or $100. Or sometimes a few dollars. They're just making money out of this. If they can sell that information, think of this: like 50,000 people, and they're charging $5 per sale or $50 per sale. Think of that amount that they can make over time. So it's about reselling information. It's about using your information for illicit activities, creating accounts that you never owned under your name. And if they're caught, nothing happens to them. You're caught. You're in the. You're gonna have to deal with this. And this is how it happened to me actually. One day I realized that someone accessed my bank account, and apparently he was collecting my information. And there you go. I work in cybersecurity. I know the space very well. I protect my information very, very well. And he was able to access my bank account. And it became personal. Like identity fraud became personal for me. Also, a year ago, 2023, not long ago, I had thousands of dollars of fraud on my credit card. Again, I'm not guilty here. I haven't done anything wrong. I always protect myself. I have all the one-time passcode in place, two-factor authentication in place, Face ID, all those lovely technologies that make our life sometimes miserable, sometimes easier. And so, why this happened to me? I always ask my question: if this can happen to someone who is well aware of those threats, then it can happen to everyone.
It's just so close, isn't it? This is the thing. I guess having grown up and worked in marketing now for many decades, often you kind of get sort of lulled into this sense that, oh, it's happening elsewhere. It's kind of either it's not in my country or it's not in my backyard. It's somebody else. It's some other business. But this can be so close to home, can't it? It could be the very next click that you do, or that very next digit that you put into the app to unlock a password or something. It is so close and so personal, isn't it? Do you find that this is going to be a challenge to, I mean, I'm thinking of our audience here, marketers, entrepreneurs, business owners, that on the one hand, that we're encouraging them constantly to put more information online, open up, be transparent about your business and your products and services, do more marketing, be out there, sharing, collaborating, connecting. But the more you share, there's almost this kind of duality, isn't it? Because the more you put out there, that's more of an identity that is then obviously potentially going to get used in fraudulent ways. This is getting almost quite kind of awkward, isn't it? Really, it's like the more you put in, the worse it's going to get. But the more you put in to build your business is almost a necessity. Where do we go with this?
Yeah, I can't emphasize enough on this, especially as businesses use more cloud services and they send that information to the cloud for better collaboration, better efficiency, more productivity. There's this trade-off is always there. Personally, as a company, even on a personal level, I don't use cloud services when I want to deal with secure information and confidential information because I know that anyone can be compromised one day. Even our servers can be compromised. So I don't use cloud services. I use very well protected devices, very well protected own server to deal with those threats. But yeah, that's the way it is today. And maybe we can at least try to protect our identities because identity is extremely important. It's my information, it's my privacy, it's my activities in this digital world. And how do I protect that information from being abused? As it is, I'm unable to protect it from being stolen, right? Microsoft is having a data breach. It's a $1 trillion company. It has, I think, $2 trillion market cap. So they really have deep pockets to deploy any kind of protection, to protect infrastructure, to protect their customer information. But they got hacked, not just once, multiple times. And this tells you something. It tells you that hackers have been very, very smart at finding loopholes or network weaknesses or sometimes a backdoor, just because, our security cannot be perfect. And one of the reasons why these data breaches keep happening, because there's always a way to get around, security and find your way. It's like water, water is going down the stream and wherever it finds a hole, it gets in, right? Same thing here. And that's what these people are doing, the hacking groups. They're just focused on finding any database that they can breach that can provide them hundreds of millions of personal information of accounts, whether it can be UK-based, US-based, worldwide, it doesn't matter. They just want to use those information to hack our accounts and hack our devices. And there comes the problem, because as you see those data breaches happening more often than ever, they're providing those hackers our personal information and sensitive data. And they are using this information very well to hack our devices and accounts. Anyone who has access today to my Gmail can know everything about my life. And if they have a backdoor to my device, meaning I somehow got compromised, they can bypass all the security stops that are available today, from Face ID to two-factor authentication to Google authentication to any kind of password or security stuff that I have in place. It can be bypassed. And this is the big threat that we were like, okay, we have to do something about that. Our identities are under threat day and night. And as long as someone has access to that data and they can easily create an account with that data or access my account through that data, I'm not safe. So what do we do about that? You know, we thought as a company that, how about if we eliminate credentials permanently? Like, there is no more password, there's no more username, there's no more two-factor authentication. How about if we eliminate all that? Because this is what hackers are after. That's what they want. They want to get access to those passwords. Sometimes they try to guess them too. Like, there are algorithms that can get make like do the guesswork of passwords, what this password could be, right? So that's the first, I would say, like, paradigm shift that we have gone through in finding a solution to protect identities from data breaches and to protect our identities from hackers, is to eliminate credentials altogether and replace that with biometric access. Because guess what? Someone can't steal my biometric or my face. They can steal a picture of it, but not my real face, not my real biometric, whatever it is. It could be a hand. In our concept, it's a hand, but yeah, they can't steal that, right? But they can see my password, they can see my credentials. And that's how we thought about building Katsh.
That's a neat kind of almost sidestep away from the norm, isn't it? Because we've all kind of grown up with passwords and logins and various security settings. But if you almost take that out of the equation, you're playing a different game then, aren't you, to the hacker? Because the hacker, as you say, has been obsessing over decades of, data and processes and mapping out all of that flow of information. But if you say, well, we're not going to play that game, we're going to do something completely different, and actually it's almost untouchable because we're in the physical world, even though we're talking digital here. That's a really neat way of sidestepping and saying you can't touch us because we're distant to your game. I like that. That's interesting. Do you find that comes, I guess, even more into play when somebody listening to this might be thinking, it's not just my data. I think my data is pretty safe, but actually I represent 1,000 customers, for example. We have a database of customer information and customer data. There is a massive responsibility here from a security perspective, not just, the legislation or the regulations in your own sectors for carefully storing stuff like that, but actually the cybersecurity implications of somebody else's data that you are responsible for, so you can market to them, or it's customer data. The kind of the stakes get so much higher, don't they, when it's somebody else's data you're looking after? Well, where does somebody begin to really think about that in this respect?
No, absolutely. I mean, think about businesses, right? They house on their infrastructure customer information, employee information, and that information is a liability. Any moment when your infrastructure is compromised or this data is stolen, you can get sued, period, right? And not just that, you want to make it up for your customers and how to protect them. Like, I get those emails, our data breach was compromised, we have 70 million accounts affected, blah blah blah. But at the end of the day, what do I how do I catch that? Like, how do I protect myself? I have to have more friction now in my life. I want to freeze my identity, I want to add more two-factor authentication and this and that. Like, security, due to this situation, is becoming very hassleful. And that's why a lot of people are pushing back against those methods. Like, okay, how about if I've heard it from a lot of consumers, I don't care. To be honest, like I heard this, I don't care. It's too much hassle that I need to deal with to be very safe. And even though like they look at Microsoft being breached, for example, or professionals being breached, they said if those guys are not safe, why should I even worry and do all the hassle of multi-factor and blah blah blah. No, I just want to have a simple app. Look, we think security has to be easy and has to be safe. It just cannot be hassleful because people will push back against it. They're not going to apply it. That security protocol you have in place is not going to be fully applied. Um, I've worked at large institutions and I've seen it. Even employees sometimes they push back on those security protocols. They just want to get things going. They don't want to have a very complicated day-to-day operation where it's taking them so much time to do very little. And yeah, going back, I mean, circling back to your point, businesses are, they have to be very careful about that information they have on their infrastructure so that it's not, compromised. And they have to protect their information from the abuse of those hackers. And that's what we're trying to do, at Katsh. We're trying basically to eliminate the abuse of information by allowing people to authorize who can use that information. The system today allows anyone, I don't know, there's this narrative in the marketplace that big tech owns your information and like they can sell it to whoever they want and you're kind of like hopeless, you can't do anything about this. We're trying to change that. We want people to gain authority over their information again. They have to gain control over who can use their information. That's the really the genesis of why we created Katsh, because we noticed, and because I have a personal experience in that fraud incident I had, where personal data was abused and used, and I was like not guilty in any way, shape, or form when it happened to me. And everyone is not, in my view, guilty in any way, shape, or form. It's just because the system allows people to do business very easily. That's a good thing, but the trade-off now is the stakes are becoming much higher now that hackers have access to AI, they have access to the latest technologies to spoof devices, spoof accounts, access large databases, compromise those databases, use those information to their advantage. So I think our concept was really simple: eliminating credential so that hackers have nothing to steal to hack your account. Replace it with biometrics, strong biometric security. We can go over this quickly in a while. And at the same time, give you the authority to authorize, give you back control over your personal information. And you, from now on, decide who can use your information, why they're using it, and the day they're using. So you decide where, when, who can use your information. These three concepts kind of, if you think about it, really can change the whole landscape in cybersecurity, in our view.
So reinventing it makes so much sense. And I think, changing that landscape by not accepting that the current processes and systems are working and saying, right, we're going to innovate. We're going to just rethink how we keep control over our data and our information and obviously the identity. But what happens, Eli, when you get a situation like obviously with OpenAI and ChatGPT? I know this is well documented and well reported on, but I'm interested in your view on this. Obviously, it is a incredibly powerful process that a lot of us have been going through, which is creating content, running reports, maybe doing a little bit of coding. It's free. I can dabble and experiment, and amazing outputs come, and I don't have to kind of learn anything. Prompt engineering is a thing, but I can be very, very basic and very almost naive in the way that I prompt an AI like ChatGPT, and it'll give me some amazing outputs. But then there's a big but, which is, okay, if I attach this spreadsheet, which has got some company information, or if somebody in my business who, unwillingly or unwittingly probably, sort of, divulges some information into there, very naively, very innocently, it's then in the public domain. Are we kind of opening up with things like open source AI? Are we kind of almost opening the doors to even worse a situation, because it feels from the way you're describing it that, okay, we can lock it down with biometrics, but then if we're still behaving in such a way where we're actually openly on the open market sharing stuff, even though we might not even be realizing we're doing it, we're actually making the game even easier.
Yeah, so there's two elements here. When you're sharing data with ChatGPT or on the cloud or wherever, there's a confidentiality aspect, right? Like I'm providing private information to the public essentially, and there's the security aspect. So those two aspects are very important in our view, because confidentiality is very tough, like very challenging. We need to address that. We need to find a solution. It's very challenging now to address that problem. We think Web3 has potential, and we're trying to do that in our next challenge, because we're always trying to reinvent ourselves here at Katsh. We're not happy to where we are yet. We think we have to protect a lot of things, not just information. You have to protect, like technically speaking, I'm going to just mention a few things. You have to protect your data. You have to protect your identity. You have to protect your session ID. Once that session ID is activated on any device, you have to protect it. You have to protect your network. You have to protect a lot of things. So it's a slow process, but now we're focused on identity because we think this is where the stakes are really high. Like you can lose money here, you can be defrauded, you can have your name being used in illicit activities. You don't want to do that, right? So we're focusing on identity because the stakes are very high. But of course, when it comes to confidentiality, that's another very risky proposition there. And yes, absolutely, when you're sharing information with ChatGPT, we don't know what's happening exactly yet, but definitely that information is on the public domain. Definitely this information at one point could be compromised. I don't have enough information to confirm whether it is being used for training purposes, right? Because I mean, what is the guarantee today if I provide that information to ChatGPT that ChatGPT is not using that information to train their engine or their LLMs? What is the guarantee? I've heard guarantees from so many companies and to be deceived later on and realize that, oh wow, they've been using it without our authorization. And they didn't even ask us for permission. In fact, here's the thing. You want to check what are the terms of use when you use those services. There's definitely terms of use there. And that terms of use can include some legal clauses that says, hey, that, like for example, if you open an account with Instagram, that was like not long ago, there's a in the terms of use there are terms that says, well, your information is ours now, and we can use it the way we want. If you upload a picture on Instagram, we have the permission to use that picture for whatever reason. So maybe this has changed in some countries now, but this is how it started, at least, right? And some companies are being sued for conducting, doing those acts. But essentially, there's no guarantee. Let's be honest. There's no guarantee that once it is in the public domain, that company, whether it's ChatGPT or others, I'm not going to be pointing fingers at particular products. I think every product, honestly, once our information is on public domain, there's really no guarantee that it is not being used either for training purposes or even maybe resold by third parties who have access to that information.
It's quite daunting, isn't it? It really is, because it's almost like wherever you look, both personally or in your business, there's a vulnerability. What is the kind of the process? I do want to come on to the biometrics in a moment, because I think that's fascinating for a lot of us, because we obviously using the fingerprint and the face ID and the stuff within our iPhones and things like that. So I want to come on to that because that's very close to home for many of us. But I'm also kind of curious about the whole idea of very much sort of seeing this as part of a process, if you like, or as part of our kind of personal or business system. So is this a case of kind of mapping out all of the various touch points we have with the world, with customers, with data, with kind of our systems, and actually trying to search for points of vulnerability. Is that something as business owners or as marketers we should be doing? Or is that something that somebody like Katsh should be coming in to kind of help us with? Can we self-service this stuff is really, I guess, what I'm asking.
I think most businesses, a lot of businesses do that. I wouldn't say the small, medium businesses, but large businesses are doing that. I mean, it's their job to do that. They sometimes employ white hackers. We call them white hackers because they're just doing this to uncover vulnerabilities in your networks or in your infrastructure. Uh, Large ones are doing this. I am very confident of that, but it's not enough. Um, those networks are pretty complex. This infrastructure is pretty complex, and there's always a way for information. Once it is accessible by a user, it means it's on the public domain. Then it is accessible to everyone else, and that hacker can always somehow find those vulnerabilities. They scan for them, like you just said. This is their job, and once they find that hole they can go through, it's over. They have access to the data, and they're going to use it. They're going to steal it. So history, the records in history show that probably this is going to be a lost war. Protecting information from being stolen is going to be a lost war, most likely. The way it is, and the way it is, from what I see, if we couldn't fix this in 50 years, it's probably not going to be fixed anytime soon. There's the way the system is built today, and these infrastructures, like I said, they're highly complex, very sophisticated, and there are so many ins and outs and moving parts where it becomes very daunting to be able to create a network with zero vulnerabilities. This is not going to happen in our view, and the hackers will always find a way to infiltrate from here, from there, because there's vulnerabilities. So to your point, yes, I mean, at Katsh, we're focusing on identity because, like I said, the stakes are very high. That doesn't mean the stakes are not high on confidentiality basis, on privacy basis. Of course, they're also high, but at least we should start from somewhere. And identity is a great place to start from because at least you're removing the incentive. If you're able to authorize who can access or not access, who is allowed to use that information on a particular day for a particular purpose, this could change a lot of things in the security realm of that information. And I'm stopping people from abusing that information. I'm removing the incentive from a hacking group that if I get this information, I can hack accounts. Or perhaps I can use that information for illicit activities, or I can, not compromise the device. That would be like, you can always compromise the device, but as long as you can't use that information to your own good, like think of this like I'm very thirsty. I can steal water, but I can't drink it. If that makes sense, right? Like I can't drink it, so I'm not gonna steal it anymore, right? It's kind of like similar to that analogy, if that makes sense. So
Mm.
we think the focus should be on identity today because it's very, very difficult to protect vast or major, like large databases of information. It's very, very hard.
Mm. So where would you say then, because biometrics obviously comes in many forms. I think for the lay person here, and I would certainly say I'm one of those. We know there's obviously the fingerprint and the facial recognition. Are you kind of betting on one particular type of biometrics that's going to kind of win the game, or is this all about trying to get a balance and a mix depending on the situation?
Yeah, that's a great question. So the choice of biometric really is based on a research we've conducted. Um, and the research was based on the individual's preferences, like what are consumers preferring in terms of biometric? What do they like to use? Do they like to use iris? Do they like to use facial? Do they like to use fingerprint? Do they like to use hand, palm? There's like several options. Which one to pick? That's the first thing we were kind of like trying to address. And the other thing is that which biometric is more secure? There's like consumer preference. That's a cool thing. We want to take a look there and see what people prefer. But also because there are privacy issues. There are a lot of, like, for me, iris recognition is extremely invasive. Like, seriously, facial recognition is invasive. I don't want to use this. I might use Face ID sometimes because, like, it's just on the device. But again, we learned recently that that enclave on the iPhone was also compromised. Like, there's a hacking group that was able to access facial information on the iPhone. So that was scary for me as well. Like, but it wasn't that scary because honestly, like, our faces are available on any social media profile, whether it's LinkedIn or so. When we thought about biometric, we thought of something that is not accessible for everyone. And facial recognition was totally off the table because facial recognition, there are a lot of fraud problems with facial recognition. First of all, it discriminates against people of color. It's not very accurate in some uh, cases. Facial recognition is extremely invasive, and the problem lies is that your facial information is just traveling through third parties and service providers. I know, like, for example, airlines sometimes use facial recognition, and the third party service provider was hacked. So it wasn't that airline's problem, but that third party was compromised, and your facial data was compromised. So again, and the fact that it's available on any social media profile, we try to stay away from face. It's abundantly available. It is not safe to use facial recognition. It discriminates against people of color. Like, this is not right. It has to be really good at detecting all humans equally. And so now that we have anything about your face, it's just not an option for us when we wanted to build our product. We thought of hand or palm. Why? Well, because it turns out that it is even more secure than facial recognition because the hand itself is more rich feature, which is amazing, by the way. Also, it does not discriminate against races or people of color. And the reason why is because every one of us has a bright palm, no matter what race they're coming from. And also, it's private. People are more comfortable scanning their hands instead of scanning their faces. So it's a private biometric. It's also not voluntary. Like, think of this: you can be passing down the street, cameras are capturing your face, but are they capturing your hand? No, it's a voluntary biometric. So the hand itself, as a biometric in our view, has a lot of positive levers, and we really like it as a biometric of choice due to those facts.
It's interesting, and I think a lot of people would be quite surprised to hear that because we get so used to the ones that are literally in the palm of our hand, which are the fingerprints and the facial recognition. And obviously, Apple, bless it, has kind of trained us in such ways, and many of us are using that on a multiple daily basis. But the palm thing is really quite interesting. So, do you see that as a crossover into kind of mainstream consumer access of data and things, because obviously a hand and a palm is quite a big thing. I could imagine it on a computer screen, but actually on a small handheld device, is that appropriate for all situations?
You mean in terms of usability? Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I sometimes struggle to unlock my phone using my face because it wasn't really straightforward. Like, it was a little tilted. While your hand, it's just easier to scan it, and you can even unlock your phone with your hand. It's super easy. It's actually more even convenient. But in terms of usability, also, we think that as long as you're using a camera to unlock that device, cameras are abundantly available everywhere. Like, on my laptop, they're on my iPad, they're on my iPhone, my Android, on my tablet, anywhere, right? There's cameras everywhere now. Even, I think, the future watch will have a camera. So cameras are abundantly available. And when we try to provide a biometric option for consumers, we thought of the hand and a camera. That's it. Only these two elements are needed: a camera and your hand. That's all you need. And then the magic happens on our API. when you validate who you are. Why? Because we wanted to mimic what passwords provide today. The beauty about passwords is that they provide you access anywhere. You can access your accounts on any device. That's their beauty. The downside is that if they're compromised, anyone can access your account other than you, right? So the way we try to approach this problem is by replacing credentials, eliminating passwords totally from the equation of identity security, so that no one but me can access that account. I'm the owner, and I use my hand biometric, like for the reasons I mentioned earlier, why it is a more preferred biometric option. And I'm the only person who has access to that account. So what are we doing here? We're providing you access on any device, just like passwords. We're providing you a very strong security, much stronger even than multi-factor authentication or even Face ID on any device as well, right? And so it's like a password, but there's no password. I don't have to manage passwords. I don't have to reset passwords. I don't have to change passwords. I know, like, for businesses, they force their employees to regularly change their passwords because these passwords can be compromised, right? And so it's another job. Managing credentials is just another job. How many passwords do you have, Neil?
Oh,
I
I
think
lose count. I have an app that helps me remember the passwords because, and of course, if that gets compromised, then everything falls apart. It's
right,
crazy.
right. One day, actually, my keychain stopped working, and I was frozen for 2 days. I couldn't do anything because I don't know my passwords. They're all. This is the password manager for me. Not to mention the fact that if I'm compromised, or that app was compromised, or my device was compromised, those passwords now are on their own hands. So yeah, we wanted to create convenience and security on any device. Of course, we tried to make it private by using the hand as a biometric option, because it is definitely more private than the face. So think of this: security and convenience on any device. That's basically what passwords do, but they're just not secure. They provide convenience, but they don't provide they provide also friction. You want to manage them and remember them and reset them, but they provide you access. The convenience is that you get access on any device. We're trying to eliminate the friction of passwords, eliminate the security vulnerabilities of passwords by replacing that password with your palm. Your palm becomes your password. It's extremely secure, what we have built. It is something that I personally see changing the world, because think of this: if I'm able to access my account securely using my palm, I don't need to deal with the hassle of credential management. I don't have to use passwords again ever. It's not a password manager. Like, it's not that. So passwords are totally out of the equation. You're really here authorizing who can use that information that you own. You become the owner of your information. You are the authority of who can use your information. This is the new game in on the block in our view.
Eli, I want to really thank you for your guidance here. I've learned so much in this conversation, and I'm sure everybody listening to this is now kind of really waking up to the fact that this is one of the most strategically important things that you can do, both personally and professionally, is to really pay attention here to the opportunity. If anybody wants to come on the crusade with you with the hand recognition in terms of obviously taking this whole security thing forward, how do they connect with you? KatshID.com?
Yeah, absolutely. They can visit our website. They can also add me to LinkedIn. I'm available there. Love to connect with peers and customers that are interested in our concept, that really have had enough with identity fraud, financial fraud. They've had enough with credential management as a business. They want to protect their infrastructure and cloud from the threats of hack and honeypot theft. Um, we'd love to connect with these folks and provide our service to them. And now we're conducting beta testing with certain customers, and also we're trying to provide access as an investment to everyone who wants to use Katsh. We actually now, because we want to really democratize access, we want to make it available for everyone, free of charge. We don't want people to use Katsh ID and pay money. As simple as that. If you're a business, obviously you're going to pay money because it costs on our end to provide that service. But if you're a consumer, we're trying to, as much as possible, provide Katsh ID to all consumers free of charge. So businesses will probably pay the cost of Katsh ID, not the consumers. And even if you're a consumer, we're trying to democratize access by providing it for free for all consumers so that you can protect yourself, protect your information, and gain access and authority over your information again. Because today, you don't own your information. You don't. And we want to change that so that you really decide who can use your information, why they're using it, and when they can use it, and where they can use it. It's as simple as that. And your hand, our hand concept that is accessible on any smart device will protect you and provide you access on any smart device. So yeah, please reach out, visit our website, connect with me on LinkedIn. Happy to connect, and let's just try to change the world by democratizing access to identities while providing security and convenience without any friction. This is our goal. This is our mission. This is what we're trying to build at Katsh. And I really thank you so much, Neil, for giving me the opportunity and for having me on your show.
Eli, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you for your time today.
Thank you.